Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. As you know, this is the first part of our six-part webinar series that we are just kicking off today around maximizing the value of your UiPath automation program. For those of you that don't know who I am Fabiana Corredor, and I am the marketing director here at Oxys. And first of all, before we get started with the discussion and with what the panelists put together for you today, I want to thank Eduardo, Sam, and Jose for being here with us. And I also want to remind everyone that your lines are muted. Okay, so if you have any questions, what you can do throughout the discussion, you don't have to wait for the end of the discussion. You can start submitting your questions in the question panel. There's also a chat section where you can leave your comments, and we will make sure to address those questions throughout the presentation or at the end of the presentation. Also, feel free to take pictures to the slides for some of the information that you see. But just so you know, if you would like to get a copy of the presentation, we're happy to share that with you. Also, you can put it in the chat or send me an email, and we'll make sure to get you a copy of the full presentation and the recording after we're done with the webinar today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eduardo, the head of our Intelligent Automation practice at Oxys, who will be moderating the panel today, and he will also introduce Jose and Sam in a minute. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Fabi. So as Fabi was mentioning, my name is Eduardo Liquez. I am Managing Director for the Intelligent Automation practice at Oxys. We've been really working with automation tools and mostly with UiPath. We're a UiPath Gold partner for the past 5 years. We've started with the technology very early on, really building automations for our own purposes, and really quickly understood this was going to be a technology that would change the way organizations think about productivity gains. And that's when we decided to partner and go ahead and build a practice around this. And we've really been helping organizations like Jose's organization, Amaranth Bank, who I'm really happy that he was able to join today. He's going to be doing a little bit of an intro in the next few slides. And also great to have Sam, who heads the professional services team for the Americas at UiPath, to be part of the panel today. So I'm very excited about their perspective on a lot of the topics that we're going to be talking about through today. So let's dive right in. So one of the key things that we wanted to discuss, as the topic is going to be maximizing, the value of your UiPath program today, is really thinking about what do we think are the key pillars to making that happen. One of them, having the right automation, vision and governance around your program for the organization. If you don't have this, having the right, strategy and vision for what automation and RPA really means for your organization, you're going to end up with a project-based work that is going to be really hard to really scale across your organization, really drive the true benefit of automation for your organization. Then we have, naturally having the right technology partner is going to be key to enable idea creation and management, pipeline management, and to be able to scale with execution of hundreds of automations in a way that you can really control and manage your program. Having a low-code, self-use automation tool that can really drive productivity gains beyond what professional developers can do, and really drive that vision of automation first, and then really bringing in the next step of having AI and machine learning help you go through that journey. But most important of all, and that's one of the key things that we're going to be talking about today, and that's going to be the focus of today's conversation, is going to be talent management and building that COE in a way that can really support the growth and the goals of your organization by having qualified, cost-effective talent that can really drive business case creation across many opportunities, not just a couple. Just having the training and upskilling program to really get the organization excited, being able to move people that were previously doing things that could potentially no longer be done into these positions that are much more fulfilling, that are going to be needed to move automation across your organization. And then just making sure that you have a team that can really build close collaboration. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today needs to be done in a live communication. We know that face-to-face is no longer necessarily the goal, but definitely be able to collaborate on a real-time basis. So talking about a little bit of talent, how is talent moving, and specifically for RPA, RPA continues to be the fastest growing software segment in history. We saw almost 40% growth in 2020. We're about to see, and it's expected to be at a minimum 20% for 2021. So it keeps expanding, and AI specialists and RPA engineers are the number one job being looked at by LinkedIn. Then you have other metrics such as 80% of RPA developers are willing to jump ship into a new opportunity right away, and 36% of all of them are really actively looking for new opportunities, which creates a lot of pressure for COEs to keep and maintain talent. We're also seeing costs of developers really start to rise, with the average RPA developer, seeking $105,000 a year. And we actually saw that with a lot of the responses that you guys gave us, with 48% of you who registered for this webinar saying that finding and retaining automation talent was one of the main challenges that you guys were seeing within your RPA program. So all of this really leads into, how do I make this a stable, cost-effective and scalable solution for the whole organization? So now we get into the fact of how do we build the COE? How do we keep the COE running? So the COE not necessarily means the exact same thing for all organizations. We're talking about size and demand for the technology. How much do you want to take in-house? How much do you want to outsource? Is it a core competency for you? But in one shape or form, you're going to need some key roles that will have to be played, and not necessarily can be done by the same person, because they're very different professional profiles of the activities that need to be done in order to be successful, from project management to program sponsorship and being the automation champion through the organization, which in most cases is an internal role, and then having gone down to more technical positions like the solutions architect or the business analysis role or developers. And we have seen a lot of organizations that have tried to merge all of this responsibilities into one or two people, and that creates a lot of issues, because it really, you can't be good at everything, and they're very likely very different professional paths and personality types to be able to create the type of deliverables that are required as you're building true effective automations. And then you go down the path of what happens after automation is in play. What happens once it's live, and you want to make sure that the value that is being created through all this automations is truly being I guess kept and through the years. You want to make sure that value it's not just for the next 6 months or the next 12 months. You need to have a strict support system that can really make sure that those automations are running, and naturally making sure that the key roles that need to collaborate with your business are there to really drive those conversations that naturally need to happen in regular business hours and very frequently. So with this being said, setting the table and really understanding what we wanted to discuss today is really, what does it take to build an automation COE? Defining the balance of what's a third-party role look like, pros and cons of using onshore, offshore, and nearshore, resources within your COE. And, we naturally, as a leading company offering nearshore, wanted to talk about a little bit of leveraging Latin America as a source of development resources, which is something that is definitely a trend that is ongoing in the past few years, potentially in some cases moving from the traditional Asian model to more of the Latin American model. So we wanted to touch some of those as we go through the presentation, and then talk about best practices on upskilling your employees and driving automation across your organization. And then, of course, the key considerations for selecting your UiPath partner as you're trying to scale or add flex resources to your existing COE. So with this being said, I wanted to introduce the panelists today. So Sam, I think you bring a very unique perspective as the leader of professional services for UiPath. So could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Eduardo. Yeah. As you said, Sam Monjo, I'm the really responsible for kind of the successful delivery of any implementation, really working with any customer on achieving their goals. Really our customers or anyone who's working directly with UiPath. As part of that business model, I see a plethora of implementations, a variety of different clients in different industries and different sizes who all have different goals, right? Some are just trying to get an automation into production. Others are trying to kind of grow their COE or develop talent. I do work frequently with a lot of partners. We align ourselves on the best ways to do so, oftentimes kind of leaning on each other to make sure that we're really supporting our clients to the best of our ability. So I'm happy to be here, Eduardo.
Thanks, Sam. And, Jose, who leads the intelligent automation practice at Amerant Bank, I just wanted for you to also give a brief intro and also, just give us a high-level view of how RPA is being leveraged across the bank.
Hello, Eduardo. How are you doing? My name is Jose Manuel Perez. I'm working in Amerant Bank. Just to let you know, Amerant Bank is the second largest community bank in Florida. We have 25 banking centers around the United States, in South Florida and Houston. And I'm the leader of the intelligent automation here in the bank. We started this journey about 3 years ago, and I believe we are in a good shape now, thanks to the partnership that we made with Auxis and UiPath.
Awesome, Jose. We're going to be talking a little bit about more of how that COE was built and how do you make your decisions, and let's just dive in. As a continuation to that, Jose, I just wanted to let you take some time to discuss how was your RPA CoE structured and what led you to that decision?
Okay, our structure is a hybrid structure, and the decision was taken probably 3 years ago when we started this journey. We get an RPA technology by a chance that we get something back there. And when we start looking at this technology, we see ourselves in the future with a stronger structure, and we see that we have a lack of knowledge about it, and we see a lot of potential on this technology. So that's why when we start internally, we decide, no, we need a partner to grow this technology internally in the bank, and we need something hybrid when we can develop something internally for those low hanging fruit, and we need a strong partner to create those end-to-end process for our bank.
Thank you for that perspective. So as I understood it, you were looking for somebody that could help you bridge the gap on knowledge. You understood that the technology was going to be critical for the bank, and you were looking for a partner that can bring the technology and accelerate that first phase. And now you've added some additional resources that can help you internally to build some of the other use cases to get some in-house knowledge. And for the other side, Sam, I know that you are working with a lot of clients, and many of them are working on many models. So I just wanted to get your perspective on several COEs. How have they been built, and what do you think what works and what doesn't?
Well, it varies, right, depending on the maturity of the customer, depending on what the objectives are. And I think that's really what needs to be determined first, right? RPA is a technology that provides value. Well, it's up to the business to determine where that value is going to be measured. So, for example, if you are a small organization and you have 2 or 3 use cases initially, and you expect to expand beyond that, really the biggest challenge is finding individuals who have the competency to develop something right out of the gate that's going to be sustainable. I think, Eduardo, you mentioned around managed support. How do you make sure that you've realized these gains? The last thing you want to do is have your first automation come in, be built poorly by someone who really doesn't have the experience, and it's clunky and it's not built to scale, it's not built to last. And that can really set things off poorly, because then you're trying to showcase the value of RPA to your key business stakeholders, and it doesn't look as positive. So that's where I feel initially I prioritize bringing in individuals with these customers who have that background, right? Let's show showcase what's the right way to build something, ensuring that we're utilizing appropriate frameworks, we're testing these processes, and we're thinking about the best way to optimize our license utilization. I apologize. So that is something to consider primarily, and I think that is when things start to take off, right? You've got a use case, you've automated it, it's working well, it's sustainable, and you can start to measure that value and then communicate that value upwards. Where that potentially can grow, as I said, it's different for different customers, is when you have to start considering a larger program, right? What is RPA doing? What is automation doing? And what are our targets? Are our targets monetary? Are they for the sake of our customers, our employees? We want to improve their employee satisfaction. Maybe we want to reduce the amount of time it takes for us to get paid, right? We don't necessarily know what those goals are, but as soon as we have that established and you have that target, is when you need to start expanding into identifying processes, determining what's feasible. And with that being said, it still requires a strong technical competency, right? You can't be selecting the wrong processes. You can't be selecting a process that maybe it takes several weeks or several months to develop. It has a small return on the investment, and ultimately it doesn't look like UiPath is a good value. So what we're seeing at some of these accounts that are taking that second level, right? They've gotten a couple processes into production, is then building out a pipeline. Here's all the processes that we have. Let's have a technical resource, someone who knows the product, really has a very broad understanding of the product, and make decisions on the feasibility of the processes and ultimately the return, right? Is this a good use case to proceed with? So I do feel as though the best way to build your COE is initially delivering from a technical standpoint, and then eventually starting to align with the business and making sure that we are, as a COE, fulfilling the obligations and the needs that these business stakeholders have. So I hope it helpfully answered. Please let me know if there's more you want me to dive into.
And it really touched a lot of the points around how does success looks like, and that's a big piece that we have seen that it is not necessarily the same for all. A lot of organizations are just looking as a cost containment, cost reduction measure. A lot of organizations are saying, if I could increase my customer response times and by that customer success by 10%, that would mean say $10 million to me, even if it's not quantifiable that way. A lot of organizations are really thinking it that way so that they can really build a business case that drives customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction across the board. So thank you for that. So this being said, I just wanted to get a sense of the audience on, how does your current COE model look like? And we're going to open up the first polling question around that. Is it 100% in-house? We're leveraging partners for strategy and business analysis only. We're leveraging partners for new developments, or only for support, or we're still figuring out what the model is going to look like. So if you can take some time to answer that question, it'd be great.
Thank you, Eddie. I have opened the polling question, and as you can see, you can select more than one option, as in many cases, it may be a combination. So I'll share the results with you in a couple of seconds when we have gathered more responses.
Perfect. So while that's happening, let's just continue the conversation. So we also wanted to talk about, and initially understanding, we're going to switch gears now and talk a little bit more about talent and how to make sure that COE it's really strong and continues to be that way for through time. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, Jose, what challenge are you seeing, with RPA talent acquisition? I know that's a big topic of like I discussed at the beginning with some of the statistics.
Well, that's a big topic, and actually it's really challenging these days. When we start this hybrid structure, we start looking for the developers and business analysts for our side, and that took us more than 6 months to get the right person because of different situations. And you can see the developers on these days, even in any industry, they are like rock stars. So you see how they jump from one company to another, and that is a challenge for companies like us and like you guys, because when you just train somebody and he just in the right place to do those development for the companies, they just jump to another company. And so that's why we see this hybrid structure and a good partnership with a company like you benefits, because in those cases, we don't have the problem. The problem is on my partner, is on not on my side. And that's hard to say, but it's the reality. We are more focused on our business in the process that we need to automate it. And companies like you are the one who has to have those hard times looking for those talent and keep those talents on your organization.
That's an interesting perspective. Thanks, Jose. Sam, so I know you have staff all around the world, Eastern Europe, in Asia, onshore in the United States, and really recently have really started doing a significant investment on growing your support team in Latin America. So I wanted to get your perspective on pros and cons and what you're seeing on talent across the world.
Well, it's interesting, right? We talked about the market being kind of hot for RPA talent. And I think what's interesting about this particular field, RPA, they talk about a connecting business with technology. So oftentimes these developers are going to get a pretty high level of visibility, which is not really common for software developers. And that puts them in positions for networking, puts them in positions where they can really kind of grow their understanding of the business and open up opportunities. So that's, it's inevitable that they're going to be kind of a desirable quantity in the market. So for us, as a technology firm and a kind of a solutions provider, just like our partners, it is our responsibility to make sure that we maintain that, we manage that, we make sure that these developers are in a position where they're constantly growing, they're taking on new challenges, and we're positioning them and delivering for our clients. So it doesn't put our clients in a disadvantaged position where they may lose talent and not know how to replace that talent. My team in particular is based primarily in the US. We talked about all the other regions. Romania is a big hub for us, as well as India. What has been challenging in the market is, especially in India, with COVID being the case and a lot of things being remote, no one is really expected to be on site anymore for software development. And so a customer is kind of making that decision. Well, who should I be choosing and why? Which location? Well, one of the biggest factors at that point in time when the delivery seems similar, right? It's all remote, is cost. So a lot of the market had moved to India, which has created a high level of need for RPA developers. We're seeing a lot of transition even within service providers and partners in India, where they're jumping from one place to the other, and salaries are doubling within a short amount of time. So that left us as a business in a bit of a risky position, where we decided to expand our service offerings in Latin America, where we knew there were a lot of clients, there were a lot of service providers that could do this, and we're seeing a really strong response. The talent is clearly there, and the actual kind of comparison between delivery in India versus Latin America is comparable. Pricing is comparable, as well as the actual experience for the customers. So that's kind of what we've been doing and how we've been pushing our clients and adjusting to the changes in the market.
Thanks, Sam. To really iron that specific comments that you mentioned about constantly providing new opportunities for growth, new opportunities for learning. We are seeing, and this is actually a survey conducted by UiPath by June of 2021, where it was looking at developers, what was more important to them, where were they most dissatisfied. Some key things jumped to my mind based on your conversations that are really confirming this. It's the opportunity for advancement, the idea of learning and using new technology, new use cases is a big piece of what developers are looking for. Here we're seeing 85% of them thought that was very important, but only 46% thought that they were satisfied with the learning opportunities and doing new things and starting new technology. So yes, at the beginning, building attended and unattended solutions for one specific organization is going to be really exciting, and they're going to be learning, after a while. What we're seeing is that they're looking for the new thing, getting involved in document understanding or AI or test automation, things of that nature that, can really expand their knowledge, process mining, task mining, or learning about new industries too. So that's when they decide to, I want to jump and learn how to do something new with, let's say, connecting UiPath with not only SAP, with Oracle and NetSuite, and that's where we're seeing a lot of developers trying to find new opportunities for growth and new opportunities to learn something. It is not, it is not, to me, surprising to see that 80% of them feel like salaries is a big, is really important to them, but only 27% of them are very satisfied with, with their comp, which is naturally interesting given the demand for these resources, knowing that, jumping, they have a chance to potentially get additional income, which it's something that we've found very interesting for organizations that want to build it an in-house. COE sometimes have a really strong time keeping developers, whereas a professional services provider can really offer, we have dozens of clients that they can move on to new opportunities, and then there could be a little bit more of a continuation of resources. Another point that we really like to see is, what RPA developers are really enjoying and are not enjoying. And non-surprisingly, building new things is the number one thing they love to do, which is the top one. 82% of them really enjoy building new automations. But on the other hand, we're seeing that maintaining robots, testing the solutions and creating the documentation are the ones that drive less satisfaction. And this is where test suite, task capture, and going into those areas, it can really lower the time being spent on those specific activities to really drive developer satisfaction and maintain those resources for a longer period of time, and drive a little bit more of happiness within the job. So
I would add one thing on the maintenance and support, right? That's I was a developer, I've been a developer. It is not, you want to be doing new things. You want to be solving problems. You don't want to be, debugging a little element, something that's going wrong, and constantly managing that, right? It's not fulfilling. What I've seen, if you're an individual at an organization, you do want to be building new things, and there are opportunities to outsource a lot of the maintenance and support. Most of the partners that I work with, they oftentimes have automated systems that they've created, which are meant, they spent a lot of time and effort creating these systems, something that is going to be able to help, a multitude of clients. It doesn't make sense for a single organization to build something just for that one bot. So to be able to rely on a partner there is going to give you a couple elements. First, it's going to be probably less costly, because all of those tools that these partners build are in a position where they're expecting it to be, distributed amongst a lot of clients. And then you talk about employee satisfaction. You're not going to be in a position where you're going to ask this employee to say, hey, you built this bot, it was really fun, but now I want you to make sure you're checking on it on a daily basis, right? You're going to take that part away and allow that developer to continue to try building new things and solving new problems. So just wanted to make sure I made note of that.
And I think to add a little bit to that, I think you're adding a little bit of benefit by having segregation between support and development, because it really puts pressure on the developers to build solutions that can be supported by anyone, not them, in the future. So it really puts it on them to really drive automations that follow a framework that can really that can then be taken on by another person. Then you have checks and balances with quality control as it's being migrated to a segregated team that does maintenance and support. And as you said, yeah, we do follow that procedure, and we found, at least in 2021, we saw more than 5 different organizations really call us with one request. We want you guys to support the automations that we have built. So that's right in line with what we're saying. Fabio, you want to say something?
Yeah, Eddie, I wanted to share the results of the first polling question because they're very interesting. So basically, most of the people are still figuring out what is the right model for them. That was selected by 57%. 29% are fully in-house. 7% are leveraging a partner for business analysis and strategy. 14% for new developments, and 21% for support of existing robots. Which is interesting because it aligns to what you were saying. It seems that out of the 3 things, the ones that it's been more outsourced is the support.
Perfect. Thanks, Fabi, for that. So let's continue on to naturally, we want to make sure that the skill sets that we have and the good talent that a company has that doesn't go away, and that they have a chance to really move up in the organization and really drive additional benefit to the organization. So this is where upskilling your talent on new technologies really comes into play. As Oxys is an organization, about over 30%, almost 35% of our RPA developers, technical developers, have actually come from our operation. And automations were being built. These were very intelligent people that we would not want to just let them leave if we had an opportunity for them. And we decided, because I think if I have to say congratulate something with UiPath, is their ability to build effective trainings that you can just go in and learn on your own. And they just got the training, got upskilled, and now are part of our development team at Oxys. And that's been an incredibly rewarding, at least experience for me. So with that being said, I just wanted to ask Jose, how is Amaran managing the communications of the program? Naturally, you first need to get them excited about RPA and its existence, and then how is training being thought about at the bank?
Eduardo, that's true. At the beginning, when we started this program, everybody was scared. So we tried to be really honest with every team when we start any automation, and try to let them know that this technology is here to help us in those activities that anybody want to do it. So before we start automation, we plan what is going to be the new roles of the person that is doing this process manually at the moment, and we are open to train anybody in the bank for this technology. One of the things that we are doing now is trying to get leaders in any department where they can train their people actually to run those attended bots, and try to get ideas from the department. So they are more excited if they provide the ideas to us than we go and say, we have to automate this. So it's getting involved all the teams in the automations and let them be part of the automation team.
Awesome, Jose. For Sam, how are you seeing organizations build? First of all, starting with awareness and excitement about RPA, that's where it all begins, so that they can really think about if this is going to be my next step in my career move, like communications plans and training programs. How are you seeing organizations tackle that?
Well, it's interesting because it's a situation where you are trying to gain support, right? You need individuals to buy into your program, and so it's an opportunity to kind of sell them on the idea of getting into RPA and what does it mean. And you and I were talking about this. It's a very fulfilling career. You have an opportunity to take away some painstaking processes from individuals, people who have, and I know this from my own experience, right? Building out automations for customers, where I'm sitting with them and they're saying, this process is what I do all day, every day. And I'm clicking on this, I'm going to this, I'm monitoring this. And they're sitting there, they're working 60, 80 hours on this. And then you were able to go in and kind of make their lives a lot easier. I mean, they come to me and they say, Sam, you're a lifesaver. But in reality, it's just like, hey, listen, I'm just doing my job. This is what RPA is capable of. And to have that experience, to sell them on the idea that this is the type of work that you can do, it's a very fulfilling job in that sense. Now, we've learned through the years. I've been with UiPath for about a little over 4.5 years now, and it's grown. It used to just be, hey, here's the platform, just start building on technology. Now there's a system in place, and there's all these different roles that you can handle. So if you don't have the necessary background to say you're going to be a solution architect, you're going to be the top technical individual, there are opportunities to work with businesses, understand their processes, find clear ways to communicate with your project managers, with your developers, to say, here's what we're trying to do. There's that role in and of itself. There's project management, where you're working to coordinate timelines. You're trying to make sure that you've got a program in place and you're leading a direction. And then, of course, UiPath offers all of the training for individuals who are trying to learn development from any skill. And when you talk about the growth and the opportunity, it's not just here's the fulfilling element of working with the business and being able to see and understand the business, which is very not common for a developer. Usually they're in the cubicle and we do our job and then we hand it off. There's the expansion of the product. It's no longer just taking data and transitioning it from one system to another on an automated schedule. It's expanded into testing. It's expanding into finding use cases, handling challenging technology utilizing artificial intelligence. The actual data in the output, that's now something that is much more refined. So being able to be on the cusp of that new technology is what's going to make you very valuable as an employee. So I always feel that being able to sell someone on the transition into RPA, I think it speaks for itself.
Awesome. And I think that the next step is, this has been an ever-changing, I think, a big piece of how do you keep your talent, even your existing RPA developer talent, upskilled onto the new technologies. Because the reality is that what we were doing in intelligent automation in 2018, even prior to the pandemic, is very different than what we're doing today with all the new capabilities and areas that you can really think about automating with, Action Center and apps and building long-running workflows. And it's really hard for organizations to just not only keep building, but really saying, hey, what's the next thing? So how are you seeing organizations keep up with that?
Well, I'll talk, I guess, a little bit about my own organization. I have about 250 engineers in the U.S. We have about 1,000 engineers globally, and we live and breathe UiPath all day, every day. That's all that we do. And even for these individuals, when I started, it was, here's the product, you got to learn everything. We're realizing now that it's not beneficial for these employees to be expected to know the entire platform. It's constantly growing. There's new challenges to learning this. So we have gone into an approach of really trying to specialize. It's an exercise in scaling. How do you take your skill set and then say you're going to just focus on one feature? There's enough demand in almost all of these new product features that come out to specialize your talents in those areas. So that's helped us tremendously. It's helped the individual because they see they are valuable. I look at my team and I say the ones who know that product the best are the people that I cannot replace. And right now, the people that I cannot replace, those are that are most valuable. So there is an opportunity to push for these individuals to then learn these new technologies and to say, hey, you're going to focus on document understanding, and you're going to look and work on any use case. You're going to help to evaluate opportunities to determine if they're feasible and they're applicable to RPA. And then, for someone else, hey, you're going to be working with attended automation, working with apps, working with chatbots, and potentially IVR, whatever it may be, something that's more user-based. And that's going to be your niche. And I know sometimes it's scary for people to get into niches because they wonder, what if this niche collapses? What if, there's no need for it anymore? But that's not what we're seeing. There's a reason that they went into those markets. It's because there's a tremendous ask from not only, across the entire industry. So that's what we're seeing. I push that same model with my clients, the clients who have internal in-house programs to say, we want to have, 25 to 50 RPA developers. We work with them to bring in talent that already knows best practices in those areas. And we align, or I should say we distribute those developers into those groups to help build up the expertise in those areas. So that's what I'm seeing on my side.
So it definitely sounds like, and I absolutely agree with you. Some of these additional technologies that are coming out require some, specific knowledge and training. So for organizations that are just having COEs of 4 or 5 developers, it's really hard to get, right, specialized talent on everything. So I think in some cases, even with highly developed COEs, they're just looking for those additional, resources that can help me enhance my COE to build on those specific technologies and how to bring them into my COE. So that's kind of what we are seeing, and I wanted to see if that was what you were seeing too, just having people ask you for specific knowledge and to complement their COEs from a third party like you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. You have to recognize that as UiPath, I work with the UiPath salespeople. Their job is they want to sell the licenses, they want to sell the opportunity, and there's oftentimes the notifications that go out, hey, we've got new technology coming out. Do you want to take a peek at it? Right. So that gives why they may reach out to myself as well as other departments within UiPath is to say, I heard about this, I heard about the value. Can we go through like a proof of concept? Can we do a pilot, something that's going to show us some value here? But I don't want to spend the time training my people on learning this if I don't know necessarily if this is exactly what I expect it to be? So that's where they may lean on myself, lean on partners to say, can I bring someone in, X number of weeks just to start building the solution in this area? And then I'll decide for myself if this is what I want to invest in, and if I want an in-house person to learn. And know that UiPath is what, my product team as well as our entire learning team, they don't release a product into the market unless the training program has already been established and will be published when those new releases are kind of out into the market.
Perfect. So, and thank you for that perspective. So one of the things that I also wanted to bring up as some of the key things that we're seeing on the marketplace, some of these studies that Maine and UiPath did about the citizen developer program and surveys and trying to see, there's a, even though people say they want to do it, sometimes they're really not successful. From some surveys, 66% of employees did not even know what RPA was. So RPA awareness being at 34%, there's a huge opportunity for improvement around, communication programs, building awareness, building excitement, even with organizations that have done it, and that brings down into, some of the conversations here. 86% of employees that know about RPA are really excited and want to be part of it, but only 30% of leaders are giving access to it, and only about 5% really get to build automation. So there is a significant opportunity within organizations to really drive automation through their companies, from the bottom up. So moving into our next polling question, which is, I wanted to get a sense of how advanced or using the UiPath suite do we have on the audience, and I wanted to see how many of these apply. Are you using or are you planning to use some of these products for 2022?
Thank you, Eddie. I have opened the polling question, and again, you can select more than one answer. Document Understanding, Test Suite, UiPath Apps and Chatbots, StudioX, and Process Mining and Task Mining. And Eddie, since this is really quick, I think we can wait and I'll share the results immediately, and then you can continue.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. So I'll give a couple of more seconds for more responses to come in. All right, so let's see. So yeah, document understanding is the one that most people are evaluating or implementing with 55%, followed by UiPath apps and chatbots with 36%, and process mining and task mining actually at the same level, 36%. Test Suite at 27%, and StudioX at 18%.
It's interesting because it really aligns with the previous slide on StudioX and citizen developer programs just not getting that adoption yet, and I think that is definitely an opportunity. I definitely agree that document understanding is the number one additional enabler on top of your UiPath program that can really drive automation for unstructured data. So that is a natural extension of the existing programs and what we're going to be seeing what we're seeing in our clients. So,
and any thoughts on that, Sam, from what you're seeing?
I would say that aligns based on the demand that I handle, right? We get a lot of requests that come in from our customers. That's kind of part of my transition is I am pushing a lot of individuals within my organization to specialize in document understanding for this exact reason. So those polling numbers were not a surprise to me, but it aligns to what I'm thinking.
Awesome. And then as a last topic of the panel, I wanted to talk about the role of the partner in a CoE. I know that from data provided by UiPath, 70% of UiPath customers rely on a partner on their journey, either to get it started, to continue to build it, and then just moving on to support like we have discussed. So I wanted, to get some time from Sam to discuss this. What do you think the true role and why should more than tactically what they should be doing is more about why should customers think about partnering up with somebody that that is a UiPath partner? Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, and it's different. I think you and I have mentioned this before, right? Every organization, even the initial poll, not everyone is necessarily relying on a partner. It depends on the size of their organization. It depends on the type of talent that they have. For example, the last company that I used to work for is a small tech company, and they implemented UiPath RPA actually as soon as I left the company, oddly enough. And they had in-house talent, and there was no challenge with those individuals based on their background and learning RPA, getting up to speed, and being able to at least implement those smaller pieces. And they were a small enough organization that the idea of having a partner that's going to say, hey, we're going to have a big strategy, part of that wasn't necessarily aligned to them. But there are a lot of organizations out there that is a struggle. Finding the talent, maintaining that talent, giving them a really consistent level of work. But that's not something that can be easily managed with in-house individuals. Now, if you have use cases that are going to come here and there, that's where a partner can really come in and deliver on at least the technical responsibilities of developing a process to a high quality. So you're going to be able to get the movement and the growth as an employee or as a stakeholder that you need when you need it. I think that's something that is really reliable with bringing in a partner. Now, when it comes to strategy, this is going to help you to work with a partner to understand what are my, not just competition, but what are organizations within my industry doing? What are organizations that have similar size and structure as I? Where are they looking for use cases? You're going to get that firsthand experience by working with a partner who has done something similar, albeit in an alternative place. So far, we see a lot of positive responses of working with customers. Our customers working with partners. I strongly encourage it as an employee at UiPath and in my role.
Thanks, Sam. I definitely see, our robots can be built in many different ways. In fact, I would say that personally, the first bots that we built were decommissioned and we had to rebuild them just because they were working, but not necessarily they were working in a way that they could actually be supported and maintained through time. And I think that getting the right methodology, the right structure, the right framework in place as you're building automations from the get-go can really save you a lot of headaches. And those are kind of the things why I also think that even if it's not forever, that at the starting point and as you're moving along and you're scaling, people who do this every single day for different organizations can really bring a perspective on it. And finally, I wanted to ask Jose, go ahead, Fabi.
Oh no, I was just thinking that to Sam's point about even within UiPath, how they're specializing the skills of document understanding and test suite by person, because it's so hard even within UiPath to have one person be an expert on everything. Imagine what that would look like in a manufacturing company, in a healthcare company, or any other industry that it's not specifically, focused on RPA. It gets even harder. And it was interesting how maybe Sam, you are working with clients that seem to be a little bit more independent, but now maybe that they're implementing these new parts of the platform, they're starting to come more to your professional services team to ask for help in those areas. So yeah.
Thanks, Fabi, for that. And yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to go, I wanted to hear your thoughts, Jose, on, I know you went through this process. I know you went through this, not necessarily, thinking that this was the right decision for you, but you ended up here. So when deciding who to partner with, what would you say are the key things that you thought about when making the selection? I know, we were not the only option. I know there's many UiPath partners out there, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there are a few things that you have to have in mind, and that's the thing that we reviewed back in that days. And definitely the experience that the company has, and if that experience is what you are looking for, based on the knowledge and the capability that you have internally, because what you are looking for is a complementary skills that you don't have internally in your organizations. Also, the communication between that company and us is a key, because this is a day-to-day work. This is not something that you just give it to the partner and the partner give you a product. It's something that you work with them day a day. They have to understand your process. They are kind of workers from us because we work really close with these kind of partners. Of course, the pricing, that's something that everybody is looking for. And the commitment, that commitment is really key because you can have a pipeline and you can define that you're going to automate this kind of process in these next 2-3 years. But everybody is struggling with the happening day to day, and you can have something that come up at the last minute, and that partner have to be a commitment with you that he can just help you out to get the result that you need for what you need in the short period of time. So that's what we review, and that's the thing that I recommended to review it.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for that perspective. So, you know, before we start with we get some time to get some questions. You know, I wanted to open the poll if anybody is thinking that they might be interested of having a consultation to discuss about their RPA program and how Oxys and UiPath can really support you on that. Just let us know. You can also reach out to our automation sales executive, Alex Sanchez at oxys.com. And he would be able to get in touch with you. So if you want to open that up before I move along. So
oh yeah, I thought that I had already opened it. Sorry. Yep.
So just at the end, I just wanted to get, is there any final thoughts, Sam, that you would like to leave the team, or anybody at the audience with, to just key learnings from today's session?
Interesting, a little recap. Well, Eduardo, you and I work together, and and I have a tremendous amount of faith in working with Oxys and a lot of different partners out there. I think there is definitely a benefit to working with a partner. I do encourage a lot of the individuals, a lot of organizations that are getting started with their UiPath journey to bring in an individual in some capacity that does have that expertise, right? Anytime you want to do something, it's best to talk to someone who's already done it once before and done it once before successfully. Most of the partners that I work with, they recognize that they have to prove themselves to these customers. And they oftentimes will say, give us an opportunity to just come in and let's just get started. Let's see if we can create some value before there is that, a lot of that talk of, okay, well, I'm worried about, spending a lot of money with a partner, spending money maybe without having a good proof point. I think it's worth having that conversation. I'm assuming, and I assure you that there are a lot of partners out there that are eager and excited to showcase what they're capable of.
Awesome. And Jose, is there anything else that you would like to address before we get into the Q&A?
Well, my last comment is that you can get wherever you want either way. You can do it internally, you can do it with a partner. It's just a matter of know how fast you want to get there. If you want to do it internally, you can do it. Definitely, you can get the knowledge, you can get expertise on everything. But if you choose a partner, you can get the experience that they have, get into their teams, and get those results faster than do it internally.
Thanks, Jose. So, Fabi, is there any questions from the panel?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So one of them is actually interesting. How are you seeing your clients making decisions about what is the minimum business case to justify a new automation? We have already completed most of the obvious largest savings opportunities, and it's getting harder to get the same payback now.
That's a very interesting question, because a lot of organizations tend to be there sometimes after the pilot, and that drives with what is the expectations on your return of capital. We have seen organizations that are absolutely okay with 24 months payback, and some of them will not want to even think about automating anything that doesn't give you a payback within a year. So in that, it changes, right? It depends on what's your cost to build an automation, and if the only driver of the benefit of the automation is simply cost savings and FTE reduction. So I think that I've been talking with Sam about some organizations, and really putting the pressure on some of the executives on, what does value mean to you when it comes to automation? Do you value employee satisfaction? Do you value customer satisfaction? Do you value increased response times? And trying to make them put a financial number around that benefit so that you can add that additional number to your business case that is not just FTE reduction. We have seen in our world, and I'm going to let Sam, give us some feedback on that. We have seen in our world that, anything that has half an FTE assigned, you can get a payback within a year. So there should be many opportunities like that should be added to your pipeline. But again, it all depends on the productivity and cost effectiveness of your program. Sam, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, everything that you said aligns to the way in which I operate. When I'm talking to clients, we don't just automate for the sake of automating. If there's an opportunity where you get to the point where, hey, your pipeline is maybe it's drying up, or maybe it's at that threshold where you said, you know what, if we automate this, it's 0.1 FTE, and who knows, this process will change by the time that we start seeing value, and that's okay to dismiss that potential process. But a lot of businesses will then stop to say, we were only doing automation in this one category, and that's where the strategy needs to change to increase awareness across different business units to find opportunities that are appropriate for automation. To Eduardo's point, I firmly agree that yes, you have to find a way to determine and define value outside of just time savings. So that's, I firmly believe in that, but I'm still of the mindset that if you're not getting the return that hard line that you're saying that you need, it doesn't make sense to automate it.
Cool. And I don't know if Jose wants to add anything in terms of how they make those decisions on what to automate.
Well, we have a long pipeline to work, but it's depending on the measure of successful that you have in your organization, because everything is not coming as a reduction of FTEs. We have a different measure of successful, which is reduce errors, which is gonna comes with client satisfactions. So we have many projects that we are not gonna get the payoff back of the bot in terms of money. It's just in terms of customer satisfaction
and accuracy. Awesome.
Eddie, one question. Do you offer a hybrid model where we could collaborate in building solutions and skill up selected employees to manage current solutions and eventually build new solutions?
I think it was several questions in that, but yes, we absolutely work with customers on a hybrid model. A big piece is like, how do you mature, right? From your automation program. It starts with departmental building to multi-area automations. Then you drive into, okay, next phase is how do you scale? And when you get down to scaling, and this is where I think the question was coming on, how do we upskill existing people, potentially build, even if it's not a full-on citizen developer program where everybody will get access to Studio X to build their own automations, is to really identify what could be automation ambassadors that can really get trained and start building automations for their departments, areas, and for themselves, and then making sure that the governance is there so that the organization who we're working with feels very confident that those automations are being managed, built, and viewed and controlled from a centralized standpoint, which I think you don't want to stifle people working, but it's important that there is a level of or layer of minimum governance around that automation program. So we absolutely help organizations move, not just building, but also getting the strategy in place and upskilling their teams to make it happen.
Thank you, Eddie. And I know we are, at the hour. There's a couple of more questions that maybe we're going to have to discuss privately, but I want to ask one more question that the audience had for Sam. It says, Sam, you said that you're expanding into Latin America. In what countries are you expanding, and do you have like any preferences?
So we're working with Mexico, Colombia, and Costa Rica primarily. now in this environment, with the sake that, a lot of these individuals working remotely, we do see a lot of people moving around, right? Individuals that were based in Mexico and they're positioning themselves in Guatemala or otherwise, or Brazil even. That happens quite frequently. This talent is absolutely there, right? A lot of these places came from strong development backgrounds. I know in Costa Rica in particular, background, a lot of customers, a lot of clients that I work with are based in Costa Rica. They built out large programs there as well as partners. So the challenge for us is not necessarily on the talent. It's, I don't have necessarily a preference to say, hey, I prefer people from this one country over another. It's just a matter of putting in the time and having the appropriate background, which we're seeing there is a market of availability in all of Latin America.
Thanks.
Yeah, Latin America is like a great big country with so many opportunities and all on the same time.
So I guess I wanted to, before we close, and I thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Sam and Jose, for bringing the time and their perspective to this great conversation. For people who are on the call, please don't miss our upcoming session. We're gonna be talking about different perspectives and different other technologies. I think that based on the polls, we may be adding one for document understanding sooner than this, so that we can all understand how that is impacting the automation programs and how to really get the value for next year. So please make sure to sign up. And thank you everybody for joining. At the end of this presentation, you can find the links, if you ask for a copy, of the sources of where all the stats that were shared today on this webinar were got from. So thank you so much for everything, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam and Jose and Eddie.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.